Hey everyone, welcome to Timmy and Alby's podcast. Today we're going to be talking about fantasy basketball, everyone's favorite. Actually, it's just my favorite. I've been playing fantasy
You love
basketball.
fantasy basketball.
I've been playing since high school. I used to do like the sporting news and What If Sports, and then NBA.com, ESPN, and then Yahoo. I've been in the same league for the last 12 years. So I'm really into it. Alby, I know, has stopped over the past several years, but what we're going to do is talk about the top 5 fantasy basketball players over the past 5 years. That's including this season. And then we're going to talk about the future, the next 5 years, who we see has the brightest futures. We didn't do a ton of research on this. The most that we really did was check Basketball Reference to see when some of the guys might have been injured, to take that into account in our rankings. But you're not going to hear too many numbers from us. A lot of it's more off the cuff, what we've just seen in fantasy basketball and what we've heard or read. Anything you want to add before we get started?
I will say, even though I don't really play fantasy basketball anymore, I'd say 35% of our friendship is still contingent on fantasy basketball. So, yes, you really, really love it.
All right. Yeah, that's true. Maybe more like 45, 50%. But
yeah, that's true. We don't really talk about anything else.
Speaking of 45, 50%, my number one fantasy player over the past 5 years is Steph Curry. He averages 50, 40, 90 every season. He hasn't been hurt the last 5 seasons. I checked and saw that his extension kicked in right before 5 years ago or 4 years ago. So he's been underpaid as well, but obviously he'll lead the league in threes. He's super solid in both steals and assists. You can really win 5+ categories just with him alone. He's been really consistent over the past 5 years. And particularly with the threes, he basically can win the category by himself. So that's why he's number one. Number 2 for me is LeBron James. I'm sure we'll discuss him a little bit more, but obviously he has been the best player in the league almost the entire time, if not the entire time. Fantasy-wise, he has some issues with free throw percentage, and that's actually a pretty big deal when you compare to the rest of the guys I'm going to have on this list, because they kill with free throws where they can win the category for you. And the other thing with LeBron is that he used to be huge for blocks and steals and just the production across the board. This past couple of years, he's been dropping down in blocks a lot, and then he's been missing games sitting out just because he needs rest. Number 3 for me is Kevin Durant. The only reason why he's not number 1 or 2 for me is that he had a season where his foot was broken. But he's so solid in every category and can help you win probably 4 or 5 categories by himself just with his 50, 40, 90 percentages. Number 4 for me is Chris Paul. He's got great percentages, especially for a point guard, and then he's going to help win your categories for both assists and steals almost every year. He's not as great of an all-around guy as the other ones on the list, especially in blocks and rebounds. His threes are pretty solid, but not as good, obviously, as Curry. So Paul would be huge for head-to-head leagues. The other guys above are great in head-to-head or in roto. And then number 5 for me is James Harden. He really started his run 5 years ago when he started with the Rockets. He was, kind of a surprise then. Obviously had his near MVP season, dropped off a little bit last year. This year, as you guys know, he's killing it, leading the league in assists, right up there in points. The only thing holding him back...
leading the league in assists? I didn't know that.
I think he's still leading the league in assists.
That's impressive.
He has really high turnovers, though, and his field goal percentage isn't that great, but he is an Iron Man. He plays like every single game, so that's why he's number 5 for me. Albie, go ahead and tell me your top 5 or where you have disagreements.
Okay, for me, number 1 is LeBron, and maybe that's because I'm wearing LeBron-colored glasses. I just think that he's not only the best player in reality, but I would imagine that would coincide with fantasy basketball as well. Obviously, the games that he's missed year in and year out, whether it's flying to Miami for 2 weeks and quote unquote working out or not, but I just think his crazy efficiency, especially in his Miami years, while averaging all the big man stats, but then getting the steals and threes from the little man stats. So that to me makes him a very unique player. Number 2 for me is Durant, and for him, in my eyes, is just pure percentages. Like you said, 50, 40, 90. He also has a pretty good average for rebounds and blocks and steals, and so he's also very unique in that regard. for me, and this is where we agreed a little bit because you had Curry as your number one. He's down in 4 for me, but for me, number 3 is Chris Paul. Chris Paul, to me, I think he just seems like he plays every game. Seems like because he has the ball always in his hands and he always makes the final decisions. I would assume that just gives him, inflated numbers for stats, which is for fantasy basketball. So steals, assists, things like that. And then number 4 is Steph Curry. Although I'm not a big Steph Curry fan, I know, crazy, but just the fact that he can make so many threes, shoot such high percentages, and like you said, surprisingly, he hasn't really missed any games in the last 5 years. He came into the league with, ankle problems after ankle problems, and he had to miss a huge chunk of games early in his career. But now he's almost like a present day Iron Man in today's NBA, because it's not uncommon for players to miss 3, 4, 5 games year in, year out, and I think he's playing more than that every year. So props to him. And then the 5th player for me is Westbrook, and that's where we disagreed. I think you had Harden, but for me, I have Westbrook, and that's really because of the last 2+ years, especially this year. I mean, he just had a 26-point, 22 assists, 11 rebound game or something like that. I just saw it on Instagram, but it was just like, are you kidding me? Like, that's possible. And I think, the fact that he can win a league, whether it's weekly or head to head or whatever, all by himself, I think that's why he has to be in the top 5 for me.
Yeah, I mean, we have a few disagreements here. It sounds like we're mostly in line. For me, Westbrook didn't make it because he missed most of a year with a big injury too, whereas Harden was solid all 5 years. But yeah, I mean, I think definitely since I've played a lot more, I probably can see this a lot more through the view of a little bit less bias. I know you love LeBron and you're not a huge Curry fan, so that might be why some of those rankings might be different. But what I wanted to get more into is the future 5, the next 5 guys on our list who we think are going to be the best fantasy players. So I'll go through my list really quick. I'm not going to talk much about him, but my list is Giannis Antetokounmpo. We got Karl Anthony Towns. Thank you. I practiced a lot. Karl Anthony Towns, number 2. I still have Curry and Durant at 3 and 4, and then I got Westbrook at number 5. What about you?
Wow, Curry at 3. That's really surprising for me. My list for future 5 years: Westbrook 1, Harden 2, and those 2 are basically because of the usage rate, and I just don't see them, falling back down anytime soon.
Okay.
Anthony Davis, number 3.
Yep.
Giannis 5, and I skipped number 4 because I'm slowly falling in love with this guy almost as much as LeBron when he was first coming out. But Lonzo Ball out of UCLA, I think he's a triple-double machine. He's not going to give you a lot of points, but he's going to win you at least 4 to 5 categories every week.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of Ball. I've seen some highlights of him. I mean, I think he's going to be great, but I think for fantasy basketball purposes for the next 5 years, I think it's too early to say that because almost never is there a rookie that's going to put you over the top. And normally it takes 2 to 3 years before you really hit your stride. So that's where I would have trouble. I have Westbrook in there, but Harden not. For both of those guys, I think the usage rate is great right now and probably the next 2 years. But after that, moving forward, I'm not sure how great it'll be. There's possibility of drop-offs at that point. I couldn't put Unibrow in there. I couldn't put Anthony Davis just because of his injury risks in the past. If you told me he's going to play 75 games every year, he'd probably be my number 1. But my number 1 is Giannis because he could be like the first guy to have position eligibility at all 5 positions, which is huge for fantasy basketball because if you pick him up first, it doesn't matter who else anybody takes after you. You can grab anybody in the next round, and they can go well with Giannis.
That's a good point.
So that's one of the biggest things. His numbers are pretty close to LeBron already, and he's averaging 2 steals and 2 blocks this year, which nobody does.
What is his eligibility right now?
I think he's got 1 through 4. He's got point guard eligibility, and I'm pretty sure he's already a power forward too. And then Towns was my number 2 because his first year was outstanding. I don't think you had him on your list, but that's probably because you didn't play last year. And he was excellent last year. Percentages, he was like 18-10 already. This year he's improving. I mean, he's been shooting like too many threes, I think, trying to be a stretch. But I think he'll continue to improve. No injury history. I put him as a solid number 2.
Does he give you like steals and assists?
Not yet, but he's got the potential because he can be a great defender if he learns more under Tibbs. And I think he can pass more out of the post as well. So I mean, I think he can be an all-around guy. And the great thing about him as a big man is that he shoots great from the free throw line and makes those threes. All right. Sounds like we don't have any other big disagreements there. Excuse me, but we were thinking about this because we were talking about some of the best actors in Hollywood, A-listers, B-listers, and I was like, there's got to be a way to compare and find like the best comparable actors to some of these top guys. So I came up with a few of these. I know you did too, but we wanted to talk about 3 guys, basically top 3 on our list: LeBron, Durant, and Curry, as well as one of our up-and-comers and who their best Hollywood comps are in terms of actors. When I look at LeBron, my best comp for him is somebody like Denzel or Tom Hanks. He's versatile. He's got, has tons of hits for both of those guys. Get plenty of awards. They've been good for such a long, long time. That's why I have them as LeBron. What do you think about that comp?
Yeah, so my initial reaction to that is, so I'm a pretty big Denzel and Tom Hanks fan, but like LeBron is on another stratosphere for me.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some people would rank Tom Hanks as a top 4 actor of all time. I don't think they'll do that for Denzel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's where LeBron is for me. He's a top 4 basketball player of all time.
Got it.
He's completely changed the landscape of the league. So I think Tom Hanks has kind of done that recently. I think the fact that he's taken on so many different roles, he's carried movies all by himself. LeBron's carried teams by himself. Like, I guess that's a pretty good comparison. I will say though, LeBron making it to 6 NBA finals in a row. I don't think any actor, can be nominated for 6 best actors in a row. And that's what I would say would be the equivalent. So
you know what?
In my eyes, you really can't really compare LeBron to any actor, in my opinion.
I think LeBron is probably like Meryl Streep then. Didn't she get nominated like every single year for Best Actress?
Yeah, so I actually thought about Meryl Streep, but my personal opinion of Meryl is that she's a little overrated.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to, put LeBron in the same breath. But yeah, we're talking about just
you love
success.
LeBron.
Yeah, success and longevity. Then maybe it is Meryl. So maybe I am a Meryl Streep fan.
Yeah, I just couldn't think of anybody else who would be as good as Tom Hanks, who makes a hit every single time. The one guy that I thought might be him would have been Leo, except Leo just didn't win any Oscars until last year. So my Leo comp is Kevin Durant because he's been great for a long time.
Okay.
A lot of great seasons, but always kind of underappreciated. He's, people think he's the second best. He's overlooked until he broke through in his MVP season, which I know is a couple years ago, but that's kind of where I was going with the Leo comp.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Durant being second best player in the NBA, it's not really a slight against him. I just think the first best player is just that much better, and I'm a big LeBron fan. I would say the difference between Kevin Durant and Leo is the fact that Leo, in my opinion, has gone outside his lane more. He's pushed himself more. He's done, Wolf of Wall Street to
That's
Django
true.
to just he's just like done things that are very unexpected. Whereas Durant, to me, he's a solid, current top 5 player, but for the big picture of the NBA, I think he's like a top 20, and I think Leo is higher than a top 20 actor.
So who do you have for Durant then?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was like, thinking about who I thought had a really, really nice run, a very out of this world peak, and I think it's Russell Crowe because when he won Best Actor for Gladiator and Beautiful Mind, that's very similar to Durant's run from MVP to Finals, and those years at the end of the OKC run.
Russell Crowe won both of those. He won Best Actor for both those, back to back or something.
Didn't he win back to back? I thought he did.
I don't know. So doesn't that make him Steve Nash?
No comment.
All right. I mean, that's cool. I could. That's a good one. Russell Crowe. He wasn't even on my list for. I mean, I wouldn't call him an A-lister right now. But Steph Curry. Here's what I think about Steph Curry. I feel like the general population, a lot of people love him right now, especially the younger kids. He had like a huge MVP like coming out season, and then dipped a little bit last year. But so my comp for him is Chris Pratt, because I think tons of people like him right now. He is a huge hot Hollywood star. His coming out season was when he did Guardians of the Galaxy and the Lego Movie. I think he was like the highest grossing actor that year for his movies. And then his next year was Jurassic World. It was a little bit lower. It wasn't as hot. He just did Passengers, which I hear is not great. So that's why I use Chris Pratt. What about you?
I think that's a pretty good comparison. I think if you were to ask me this question last year or maybe 2 years ago, I would have agreed with you 100%. But I think the Curry narrative is actually trending downwards. I think less people love him as much as they loved him prior to last season's finals series. Whereas Chris Pratt, I think that he's still on the up. Although he made, Passengers and whatnot, Guardians is about to come out.
Yeah.
He's going to be the most beloved again. And I think the actor that closest resembles to Steph, in my opinion, then would be Christian Bale.
Oh.
Yeah, because I think that when he was doing the Batman movies, the Dark Knight movies, I think he was like by far the most beloved, not only by kids, but adults. They just loved how he played the role of Batman. And I think, he changed the superhero movies, and that's what Curry's doing with the NBA. He changed like how, players don't even run for layups anymore. They run straight to the 3-point line and try to get 3 points on the fast break. And I think that's 100% because of Curry and how successful he's been.
That's cool. I mean, the only thing I have with that is I think Christian Bale was good before Dark Knight too. I mean, he was American Psycho and then Prestige, one of my favorite movies. But yeah, that's a cool comparison. For an up-and-comer, my up-and-comer I want to talk about is Giannis, because he's so versatile. He's up-and-coming. He can do like everything. My guy for that is Ryan Gosling, because I just watched La La Land this weekend, and I was really impressed with his singing, dancing, piano playing, acting. He can kind of do it all.
I guess I gotta watch La La Land because everyone's telling me it's really good.
Okay, I wouldn't say it's like amazing. I was impressed with him. And speaking of which, I was kind of impressed with Emma Stone, even though I don't really like her.
Wait, so what was so impressive with Ryan Gosling?
Just the fact that he could do all those things. It's kind of like a live musical movie, so it's not really. I mean, it's not really normally what I would love. But I mean, the movie itself was really beautifully done. The camera work was great. The production level was top notch. And then there's no like body doubles or like singing doubles. It's he and Emma Stone doing all the singing, dancing, piano playing, etc.
Oh wow! I mean, in that case, I agree with you. Then let's do it.
All right,
Giannis equals Ryan Gosling.
Call it. All right.
I'm good with it.
Well, that's all we got for fantasy players. I heard you had a couple quick hitter questions for me.
Yeah. So I actually was in New Orleans this past weekend with a few buddies of mine, and every time we drink and just have good conversation, we always go back to basketball players and compare them to players from the past and how they would do back then. And we basically had three major topics this weekend. One of which started with Klay Thompson. Okay. And so my first question for you, for Klay Thompson, regarding Klay Thompson, if he was a number one option on a team, do you think he would make the All-Star team?
Yes. I mean, no doubt about it. He's already an All-Star, first of all. Second of all, I mean, I'm assuming if he's number one option, that means his teammates aren't great. So his usage rate is going to be really high, and he's going to score a ton of points. And yeah, he'd be an All-Star.
So you think he'll average more than 25 points a game? obviously.
Yeah, I mean he averages 21 or 22 or something right now, and he's like the third option. So yeah, I think 25 is definitely possible. He'd get at least 5 to 10 more shots every game.
So you think he'll be close to 30, maybe?
I can see him getting to like 27. Like
Wow.
if he was on, I can't think of a team off the top of my head where it would work, because teams aren't really built that way, like for a shooting guard. But if they had, a team set up in that situation, he was like a Reggie Miller type or like a Ray Allen when he was a great shooter. I mean, those guys
Hmm.
did a little different things, but I think Clay could definitely be over 25 a game, especially with like the pace of the game these days.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. So do you think he's a top five shooting guard then in this league?
Yeah, you asked me that. Who are the top five shooting guards? And I tried to prepare. I was looking them up. There are no good shooting guards in the league. Like
Yeah, it's a
Jimmy
dying
Jimmy
position. I
Butler.
agree.
Jimmy Butler's having a great year. He's a two-way guy. DeMar DeRozan was leading the league in points at the beginning of the year. CJ McCollum is like good up and coming, but I mean, besides that, I don't know who else could be in the conversation. Assuming that like James Harden is a point guard now.
Would you still put D Wade in the top five?
No, absolutely not.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
I do.
I don't think there's a well maybe because I didn't even name five yet, so maybe he's the fifth. But considering his age, his injury risk, I wouldn't say that he's like better than the guys I named.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I can accept that. Okay. So moving on to the next person we discussed is Mike Conley, and
Okay.
the salary cap had a huge bump this past summer, and he was the biggest benefactor to that. And
Yeah.
he currently, I believe, has the biggest contract in the league or something like that. Either him or Anthony Davis, but he's getting paid a ton. With that being said, do you think he is considered to be underrated or overrated?
Based on that contract, he's overrated because he should not have the largest single contract total. I think it's $150 million in the league. But
Oh,
that's a lot of that is because of the way the salary cap worked, right? He's not the highest paid player this year. LeBron is, and because of the way that LeBron structured his deal. Either way, though, I don't think that he should be paid that much, and I think he's a little overrated for that. I think he's a little underrated though by the rest of the league, by the media, by normal fans. Actually, media kind of loves him, but the rest of the fans, like, I mean, he's never made an All Star game, and I think that he should have by now. So I would say he's a little underrated in that case.
so having the highest single contract and never making the All Star team, do you think he's a top 10 point guard?
Top 10 point guard. So yeah,
Hmm.
I started listing them out because the only way you can do that is to list out the nine above him. So you got like Steph Curry, Westbrook, CP, Harden. I said as a point guard. Those are like no brainers. And then you got other guys like Kyrie, Damian Lillard. I would still say are above Conley. You probably put like maybe Lowry and John Wall above him too. And then I think he's right in there with like Kemba Walker, Isaiah Thomas after that. So I would say he's top 10.
So basically, he's top 10, but not top five, right?
I would not give him top 5 now.
Okay, okay. So to review, you would say that Klay Thompson would average close to 27 if he was the number one option.
I would say he would average 25. You asked me if he could hit 30. I said maybe 27. Yeah.
Okay, and he would definitely be an All Star because he's already an All Star today.
Oh yeah.
And then for Mike Conley, he is, he's underrated by the media, but overrated by his contract.
Yep.
And then he is a top 10 point guard, but not a top 5 point guard.
Yeah, I don't understand what the arguments were. Like, were there people really against Mike Conley or Klay Thompson?
I'll say this: there were a couple guys that were very, very anti Klay Thompson, and they think that he would even average less than what he's averaging now.
I don't think that's possible. I don't love Klay Thompson, but I can't see a way that he would average less when he's the number one option.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really look at the stats, but I doubt he's even taking more than, I don't know, 15 shots maybe right now.
I think he might be around there, 15 to 17 shots. But yeah, I mean, he makes shots. He can't average less than that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and so my final question is, if you were a GM in the NBA and you were starting a team for today, December 2016, would you rather have Karl Anthony Towns up in Minnesota, or would you have Anthony Davis?
Towns or Davis? I'd go Davis. I know he's got like some injury concerns probably because of the past couple of years, but right now, like I don't know if Towns is ever gonna reach where Anthony Davis already is. To be honest, like Anthony Davis this year is out of this world. He should be an MVP candidate if he had some better teammates or a better coach. And Towns is great. Like I don't have a problem with somebody picking Towns over Davis, but I would go with Davis right now because I say he's more of a sure thing.
So, do you think there's anything that Towns does better than Davis?
Yeah, he's 3 years younger. That's what he
So
does.
3 years younger and potentially not the injury concerns.
He can probably protect the rim better too in the future. But I mean, Davis is leading the league in blocks right now. So
Wow.
yeah,
Well,
who would you pick?
That's all I have.
Who would you pick between them?
I think my head says Unibrow, but my heart says Towns, and I think just because the fact that he's 3 years younger, we just don't know how good he can be, and I feel like he's the type of guy that's going to continually develop on his game. I mean, he's already expanding to 3-point range.
Yep.
You know, like what else is he going to add to his repertoire? And I don't know, and I think that's why the unknown is so intriguing, and so that's why I would choose Towns.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I would go Towns potentially because of the injury risk, but that would be about for Davis. But that's basically the only reason for me.
I would say this though: I don't think neither guy is an alpha male, and so I don't think they're ever going to win. To be honest.
That's a topic for another day. All right. Well, thanks for joining.
All right. Thank you, guys.